How's it going, you guys? It's Scott with Everyday Solar. Today I want to show you how to actually size a system, the number of panels, but also the battery you need to power a refrigerator or a refrigerator freezer combo like this. Now, whether this would be a full-size unit like this one in your house and you want to get prepared for a power outage scenario so you do not lose your meats in the freezer or anything in your fridge, or maybe it's just a chest type freezer or fridge, which might be more of an RV application, maybe a tailgating application, maybe a tool trailer application just to keep your lunch cool. The same process and calculations can be done for either of these, and also it's very applicable to other critical appliances that you want to power for your application. So let's jump into it. I've been powering these guys for 24 hours to start collecting the data we need to make sure we're sizing our battery and also getting the number of panels we need. So to give you a closer look at the setup, we have our chest freezer fridge, but it is set on the refrigerator side. So the unit has to either be a freezer or a fridge, not both at once, and it's set on the fridge side. And that's being powered by a Delta 2 unit and it's been powered for over a day. Right now, no solar coming into that, just running off the battery. Then for our other side, we have a Delta Pro, and both of these are also plugged into a kilowatt meter, and that's how we're overall measuring the energy that we're consuming during the whole trial. Now, the Delta Pro is bringing in some solar right now, and we'll look at that a little bit more here in a bit. It's at 81%, and it's powering our larger full-size refrigerator. Now, what you want to do is, starting off, let's look at our data or specification plates on the inside of the refrigerator. Sometimes they're on the back like our smaller unit. What we're looking for is the max watts or max power. This one has 3 different parameters that we're going to need to add up to get the maximum power that this refrigerator is going to pull on a continuous basis. And then we would look at the back of our small chest freezer and see that that's going to give us a voltage in amperage. So we take the 115 volts multiplied by 1.7 amps. So this will help us now start filling out this table. So the 115 times the 1.7 is going to be 196 watts of continuous. It said max, but that is actually the continuous load when the refrigerator is on and working. And then we add up those 3 parameters we had, which was 290 plus 165 plus 40, which would give us 495. Now, these are the first parameters we'd want to start to compare to our overall system that we want to buy. For my instances, these are all-in-one units. We have the Delta 2 on our smaller system and the Delta Pro on our larger system. So I just want to check that with the continuous power. Delta 2 is 1800 watts. We can easily handle that. And the Delta Pro is 3600 watts. We can easily handle that. So there should be no problem powering these fridge from these units. The only other caution that I'd give you in terms of how much power is, don't forget, refrigerators do have a fraction of a second that they peak up at startup. So you do need some additional surge power to handle that. So if your continuous max is close to your continuous power for the system you've selected, be a little careful, because that inrush current right at the start could trip a circuit breaker and cause you issues. So just take that into account. Sometimes it's best practice to use a factor of 3 from these numbers to make sure you have surge power capability for that. So next up is the daily energy consumption. So now we're getting into how much energy, how much battery capacity do we need. So let's go check the kilowatt meters to see what we read out. So for my larger unit, it is 0.9, and the smaller unit read out 0.23. So we do need to convert that, and that would be 900, because that is watt hours for the larger unit, and 230 watt hours for the smaller unit. That was 24 hours of running, and I opened the door 5 times for 20-second duration for each of those units to give them somewhat of a real-world scenario. Just know, if you open the door 20 times or 30 times, maybe you're at a tailgate and you're opening and closing the refrigerator or the freezer all the time, your energy consumption is going to go up pretty dramatically. So just understand that. And then also understand, you might start to compare our max power by our energy. So what you might do is say, oh, max power multiplied by 24 hours is going to give me my energy consumption for that 24-hour period. not so fast. That is why that would not make sense in the scenario. And that's because your refrigerator, if you look at an XY axis, is really only turning on, let's say we have our small one is going to 196. It is peaking up and powering for a little bit amount of time and then going back down to no or very little power draw for a duration of time. Then it's spiking up again, running for a short amount of time, going back down, and so on. So you have periods of on, off, and you're cycling through that. That is why you cannot take this multiplied by our whole 24-hour period to get the energy consumption, because it's not a continuous cycle. It will cycle on and off, and this will depend on how many times you're opening and closing your door. So now we're starting to get somewhere. We know daily we need to provide this much to power our refrigerators. But do not forget you have losses, especially when you have an inverter on all the time to provide that AC capability, that AC power, you're gonna have losses. Now I have measured the Delta 2 in the past, and it's around 250 watt hours per day just to power the inverter. To keep that inverter on all the time, I'm losing about a quarter of the overall capacity of that unit. So it's significant, and if you overlook that, your results and the system that you put together are not gonna provide you what you want. Now the Delta Pro has a larger inverter, and I've measured it in the past around 500 watt hours per day, maybe even a little bit more in terms of its losses. So that's really the idle consumption of that inverter being on. Adding these two up, then we have 480 for our smaller setup and 1400 for our larger setup in terms of watt hours we need per day. Now, what you need to decide is how many days do I want to be running in autonomous mode? What if the clouds are out? What if there's a snowstorm? What if it's raining continuous and I cannot get any solar power, or maybe very little solar power, to charge up my batteries? It's often best practice to account for 3 days of autonomous running without any solar coming in. So if we take the 3 multiplied by the 480, that's gonna get us 1440 watt hours for our energy capacity needed to run our small fridge for 3 days continuous without any solar input. Our larger unit, we take this, and this would be 4200 watt hours needed to run continuous and get us those 3 days. So now we're home stretch, and we just need to size the panel to accommodate for our energy consumption needs. But if you guys are just getting into solar and considering getting solar on your home to offset your monthly power bill, you can check a link in the description. It's a great place to start, and it's where I did my latest project. It was a completely DIY installed, roof mounted, grid tied, fully permitted, and approved by my utility. Now, I had a lot of help along the way from Project Solar, and they kind of walked me through the process and saved me a ton of money and a ton of time. Now, if do it yourself is a little bit more than you want to do for a grid-tied system, I understand it. That is most homeowners. They can also help you out, find an installer in your area, and still save you a ton of money. But now for your location, what is peak sun hours, or also known as solar irradiance? Now, this is a critical factor, but it is as easy as referencing a map like this. It's put out by the National Renewable Energy Lab. All you have to do is find your area and then reference your legend down here, which will give you your factor. For me, I'm here in Illinois, which is kind of right at a transitional area, but traditionally I've used, on average throughout the year, the factor of 4.2. So find your location, get your factor, and then we'll plug that into the table. So I'll plug in that factor 4.2 for my location. Remember, this is on average, so if you need worst case of worst case, probably reference your December or January. I think in my location it's as bad as 2 here, so that would dramatically change the sizing of my panels. So now we'll take the 1440 divided by 4.2. That would give me 343 watts. And then for this size, easy factor here, because we're 4200 divided by 4.2, so that's going to give me 1000 watts for this size. So what that would look like, we have our Delta 2. Now the Delta 2 battery capacity was only 1024, so that is a little shy of what we needed. One way to counteract that is to kind of over panel, have a little bit more capacity than we need from the solar side. So we said 343 watts. We have 4 100-watt panels wired up here. We have 2 in series here in the back, 2 in series in the front, and then bringing those into parallel. So we have a series parallel wiring configuration. Right now we have pretty good sun, and we're seeing about 360 watts coming in, and these panels can get up to 400 watts in this configuration. In the past, I've shopped at Harbor Freight when they're on sale for these type of panels. These are all from Harbor Freight, or you'll see links in the description. I like Renogy and then also Rich Solar. I've used their 100-watt panels. 100-watt panels are very flexible and really good for these smaller setups. And then for the larger setup, I'm just using these Trina panels. There's 4 of them here, but I actually only have 3 of those wired in series. Each of those is 395 watts, so it easily gives us over the 1,000 watts needed. Even with light cloud cover, I was seeing over 1,000 watts coming into the Delta Pro. So let me know if you guys have any questions as you work through your own setup, or just feedback if you would do something a little bit differently. If you need a little bit more guidance in the wiring, series parallel and series parallel, what is the best for your setup, check out this video right here. We'll dive a lot deeper into how to wire your panels. If you want to see that full installation of the DIY roof-mounted grid-tied system, you can check out this video right here. So thanks for joining me on this video, and we'll catch you on one of those next videos. Take care.